Back by popular demand, Alex Berenson, the man who nailed COVID. I still think you should get even more credit for that than you do, Alex, for whatever that's worth. Because I remember, because there was like Alex, and then there was a little crew of us who were trying to bring more attention to your work. Tucker was one of them, but I was certainly there too. And I have not forgotten the COVID stuff. We're not going to talk COVID today, really. Well, maybe tangentially, but we're going to dive into some other stuff with Alex Burns. It's kind of our year in review show. Those of you who are watching on video, which you should be, go to youtube.com and check out the Buck Brief on YouTube. Subscribe. But also subscribe to Alex's Substack, Unreported Truths, which I'm a big fan of. And we're coordinated today. It looks like we're doing a St. Patty's show. We both wore green for Christmas because it's right before Christmas or Hanukkah, as the case may be. But here we are. And Alex, one thing, like, I just wanted your biggest reflection on the year right now, and the thing that for you defines the year is what?
Well, I mean, I hate to, say what everybody else is going to say, but obviously it's the victory of Donald Trump, right? And a victory over, a populist revolt, a true populist revolt. And he beat the media, he beat academia, he beat Hollywood, he beat most of corporate America. He beat sort of the philanthropy blob. He beat people who donated an extra $1 billion to the other side. He beat 2 assassination attempts, and he's going to be the president for the next 4 years. And I'm hopeful. I said it 3 days before the election that I was going to vote for him. I said it publicly, and I really hope that we get sort of the Donald Trump who's the disruptor in the way that America needs, and not the guy who, the Democrats said he was going to be.
We'll get to that. We'll get there because I want to get to the lawfare discussion. But I just first because we'll talk about.
But clearly, his victory is an epic moment.
I mean, there's very little about Trump that I would say has surprised me. I met him in person the first time when I was 13 years old, Alex. So there's very little about, in New York. I knew his kids a little bit, not super well, but we, one of them I used to hang out with sometimes when we were in like high school age. And so I met him there once, but nothing about Trump has ever blown my mind quite the way. Certainly after 2016, I'll put it this way, after 2016, I feel like I've known Trump, but when he stood up and was shouting fight after he took a 5.56 round to the ear, or maybe it was a 2.23 for the gun people, but after he took a rifle round to the ear and was bleeding all over the place, that was honestly the most badass thing I've ever seen in politics. I don't think I would have done that. I was amazed.
Yes. I mean, what else is there to say about it, right?
Yeah.
He didn't panic. I think most, even maybe anybody who's not trained special forces would have a moment of panic at that moment. He didn't have it. And look, what the Democrats, and I know we'll talk lawfare, but what the Democrats tried to do to him, particularly in New York State, this spring, last year, this spring, this summer, it was disgusting. It clearly backfired on them. And I just hope that he knows that victory, is the revenge that he needed and that he got. And I guess we'll see.
Yeah. We'll return to that in 1 second. Our sponsor here is Saber, because protecting your family, a lot of you, big Second Amendment people, 2A people, but you can also have non-lethal options, and you can use those in force escalation or just because you don't need a lethal option. Depends on the situation you're faced with. And there's also a lot of other things you can do to protect your family. Layering your defenses to buy yourself time. Saber comes in very handy with this. SABRE. They've got driveway alerts to let you know when someone's approaching. Paired with floodlights, Saber's got door security bars to reinforce your front and back doors. Can stop up to 650 pounds of force. And home invasions usually happen at night. Saber's home defense launcher, pepper spray launcher, is the ultimate non-lethal choice to protect yourself and your family. The projectiles hit hard, cause intense pain, and have a 6-foot pepper cloud spray that causes intense sensory irritation. Stay secure with Saber day or night. Protect your family. Go to saberradio.com. SABRE radio. Saberradio.com. or call 844-824-SAFE. That's 844-824-SAFE. Let's start with this, because you're involved in a lawsuit, not lawfare, but a lawsuit against the Biden administration. Bring everybody up to speed. Just give us the sort of 30-second overview of what it is, what you're suing Biden over, and then you can start to tell us where this stands right now.
Sure. So I'm suing the president, really, as not personally. It's what's called in his ministerial capacity. But what I'm really suing is a couple of guys who worked for him. One named Andy Slavitt, who was in the
I
White House
remember
in
Andy,
2021.
COVID Slavitt,
Yeah.
sure.
Oh God, yeah, was he ever a panicker? And then a guy named Rob Flaherty was part of this, who was the deputy campaign manager of first the Biden administration, a Biden reelection campaign, then Kamala Harris's campaign, who was the director of digital strategy for the White House. Anyway, in 2021, Slavitt, in particular, led a conspiracy to try and ultimately succeed in getting me banned from Twitter. And so I became aware of, my ban when I was banned in August 2021. I then sued Twitter to get back on, a lawsuit that everybody said was just going to be a complete failure, and in fact, it was not. In April 2022, a federal judge said I had grounds to go forward with that lawsuit. Twitter then settled with me before Elon Musk took over. So this is pre-Musk, and put me back on. Said they shouldn't have kicked me off. I was kicked off because of comments I'd made about COVID and the vaccine specifically.
Wait, can I ask? Because
And it turned out,
I think this is
yes.
important. What was it that you said that got them so mad? What triggered the ban, if you will?
The famous fifth strike actually could not be worse for the defense. Famous is the wrong word, but the fifth
Infamous.
strike, because COVID, infamous. The COVID had this Twitter had this complicated policy of how they were going to allow people to talk about the mRNAs in 2021, and I was sort of on the forefront of raising questions about them. And for most of 2021, they basically let me talk. And then in the summer, as the White House really ramped up the pressure publicly against the social media companies, they started to issue strikes. The fifth strike was for a tweet that said, and I want to get it exactly right, I may not, but it doesn't stop infection or transmission. Don't think of it as a vaccine. Think of it as a therapeutic, meaning like a drug, that has severe side effects and must be taken in advance of illness. And we want to mandate it insanity. That was the whole tweet. I think at this point, everybody agrees that the first part is true. The vaccines didn't stop infection or transmission. And I think most people have come around to the idea that mandates were a big mistake. So that was the whole tweet. But Twitter did, in fact, ban me for that tweet. And what I learned from Twitter in 2022, after they handed over documents to me, was that Andy Slavitt had been involved, that the White House had been involved. And then, and to me, in some ways, this is the most stunning part of all this, although the media, outside of a few people like you, refused to report on it, um, uh, a guy named Scott Gottlieb. Now, Scott Gottlieb was the head of the FDA under Trump. I think it's pretty clear he's not going to be that going forward. He's going to have very little to do with the new Trump administration. But Scott Gottlieb was sort of one of these, moderate Republicans, rhinos, call them what you want. He had known Andy Slavitt, but the reason he's so interesting, and this is so interesting, is at the time that he forced or encouraged Twitter to ban me and ultimately conspired with Andy to get me banned, he was and remains to this day a board member at Pfizer. So a board member at a company that made $100 billion from selling COVID vaccines interceded with Twitter at a time when I would say, maybe I wasn't the most important voice against mandatory vaccination, but I was certainly a leading voice to get me banned. So I am suing Slavitt. I am suing technically the president, although again, he's not really, a part of this. I am suing Scott Gottlieb. I'm suing Dr. Albert Bourla, who is the chairman of Pfizer.
This is the guy who sounds kind of like this in the Albert Bourla, right? Yeah.
He's Greek. He's Greek. I was actually kind of upset and disappointed to see that Borla was one of three pharma CEOs who had dinner with Trump just a couple days ago at Mar-a-Lago. So let's hope that that doesn't mean that that they're in his ear. I guess we'll find out. But so my lawsuit says you guys violated my First Amendment rights. The White House did, that is, you and Pfizer together, or you and the Pfizer defendants together, violated, and it's a little complicated, but I'll try to, make it as sort of straightforward as I can. The rights of me as an unvaccinated person and other people who are unvaccinated to communicate around the vaccines. So in other words, my complaint is not, hey, you made me get vaccinated, because I'm actually not COVID vaccinated. No one made me get vaccinated. My complaint is I had a First Amendment right as an unvaccinated person to communicate my views about the vaccines, which were of particular interest to other unvaccinated people, and you suppressed that right. And these are actually um, like pretty big constitutional questions. There's one question is whether or not I have the right to sue for money damages for a First Amendment violation, which is something the Supreme Court has. They've said different things about this, but they've never said you can do it. And then the other big question is: are unvaccinated people a group who are deserving of some kind of legal protection? And so those are big questions. And where the lawsuit stands right now is the defense, and there's several different defendants. Andy Slavitt has his own defense, the Pfizer defendants, and then there's the government defendants. And they've all said, hey, this lawsuit is junk. We didn't do anything wrong. This should be dismissed. It's being heard by a judge in New York, and I presume that she'll schedule a hearing on it at some point. The tricky part, or one of the many tricky parts of this, is that now that Donald Trump is president, it's possible that the White House or the Department of Justice will change its view of the lawsuit, right? So in other words, they might say, hey, we agree with Berenson. The unvaccinated should be a protected class. And that would obviously change the lawsuit. So, but that hasn't happened yet. Trump is not president yet. No one has told me that's going to happen.
Are you
It's just
requesting,
something
if I
that
can
could
ask,
happen.
because this would be public record, are you requesting
Yes.
monetary damages?
I am. Yes, you can ask for monetary. So, there's kind of two kinds of relief you can ask for. You can ask for injunctive relief, meaning this is going on and it has to
Right,
stop.
stop it. And then
Or
you can
you can
ask for,
ask,
yeah.
you can say, hey, my rights were violated. That should be something that I should get compensation for. I actually didn't know this, Buck, and I think most people who are not lawyers do not know this. You cannot sue the federal government in most cases and say your constitutional rights were violated and get money damages. You can sue for lots of different things, but you can't say, for example, my Second Amendment rights were violated and get money damages. At this point, the Supreme Court has not said you can sue and say my First Amendment rights were violated and get money damages. You can sue for your Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, and Eighth Amendment rights being violated, and in some cases get damages, but not the First or others. You would think that, hey, this should be something where, what, if my rights are violated, I deserve some actual compensation. But the federal government's very wary of allowing those kinds of lawsuits.
Interesting. Let's talk about Lawfare here when we come back in just a second. Our sponsor is IFCJ for this segment. The Christmas and Hanukkah season is a time of hope and peace for so many of us, but for those in Israel facing the ongoing war, it's a time of fear and uncertainty. The hardships are felt by everyone, with many people struggling to afford food and basic necessities. During this holiday season, many living through the war in the Holy Land are grieving the loss of loved ones while also enduring isolation and hunger. We must not let them feel forgotten by the rest of the world. That's where the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews comes in. Your special holiday gift to the fellowship helps provide a Hanukkah food box filled with basic necessities and essentials to bring nourishment, warmth, and comfort to those in need. Give the gift of hope and answered prayers this holiday season. Go to supportifcj.org to donate now. That's supportifcj.org, or call 888-488-IFCJ. So now let's start with this. It's a question I'll pose to you, Alex. What is the proper response to the lawfare that they have engaged in against Trump? Because I to the degree that anybody's willing to believe that anyone who votes for Trump is, able to sort of separate out their Trumpiness from the situation. The New York City case is uh, a cluster. I'm trying to think of the right word. It is so beyond the pale of reasonable legal action for a prosecutor, in this case, for the district attorney in New York City. It's such a grotesque abuse. And I would argue what they did with the E. Jean Carroll thing, they eliminate the statute of limitations, opening this thing up so that they can go after him civilly. How do you disprove some woman saying you groped her 30 years ago in a place where you have no proof of, So, I mean, we could start with that. Like, what they did to him is horrific. And then, well, what should Trump do in response now that he's in a position to do some pretty powerful and important stuff?
Sure. Well, all three of the cases, or you didn't even mention the worst one of all, which was the absurd civil fraud case that the New York State Attorney General filed against the guy, right? Where loans that he repaid in full on time, somehow he's being fined almost $500 million for. So I think all three cases were terrible. And I wrote about this in the spring. Those were lawfare. Guess what? He doesn't need to get revenge. He has the best revenge. He won. He is the next president of the United States. He has all the power. It is humiliating for everybody on the Democratic side. And by the way, I'm not saying that, if they find, serious,
I think if someone abused, like if someone broke the law inside of, let's say, the DOJ, let's just say, I mean, if they did something that is criminal, which it is possible. I mean, when I was the NYPD, they talked about official misconduct. They're like, don't joke around. There is official misconduct that rises to criminal in nature. It's not just, if someone broke the law at DOJ to go after Trump, I don't think we excuse that. I mean, we don't manufacture it, but we don't excuse it.
Right. But, I think you can get caught in sort of a snake eating its own tail, right? So the Russia stuff was kind of where all this started, right? And that was all BS, right? Donald Trump was not an agent of the Russian government. He wasn't really in communication in any meaningful way in 2016. We all know that, okay? They tried to impeach him for it. It blew up on them, all right? Then what happens? There's an investigation into the investigation. And it turns out that doesn't, after many years and much sort of back and forth, that doesn't really go anywhere either, right? So at some point, I think you just gotta put an end to it. And the reason I am a little worried about this is, on Monday of this week, Donald Trump sued the Des Moines Register and this pollster in Iowa who released this completely wrong
and
poll.
Seltzer, who released the bonkers poll.
Yes.
And I said it was bonkers, and all my friends who know politics said it was bonkers at the time. It was insane. Bonkers. It would be like saying Trump's going to win California by 10.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally wrong. And because her record was so strong, people took it seriously, and it actually made a real difference in the prediction markets the day it came out. And it was just wrong. She was wrong by 17 points. Why was she wrong by 17 points? I have no idea.
She retired, so this was kind of like the Dan Rather National Guard documents moment, like, whoa, you're done.
That's right. Like, that ended her career. I don't think Donald Trump needs to sue her for defamation. I don't think, and this is I'm eating my own cooking on this. There's a chance, or I could have certainly sued Scott Gottlieb for defamation in Berenson v. Biden. Okay, he said some stuff that I think certainly in this new legal landscape about me, arguably rose to the level of defamation. Okay, I didn't make defamation a claim in my lawsuit because I'm a reporter first and foremost, and I don't like really defamation suits. They chill the press. And this is something in the lawsuit. Actually, we say, my lawyer James Lawrence and I say over and over again, I want robust debate. I have no problem with Andy Slavitz saying this guy's a jerk. He doesn't want, he doesn't understand COVID. He doesn't understand the vaccines. He doesn't care if your grandma dies. He will have it, or Gottlieb. Those guys could say whatever they wanted about me. What I didn't like and what I am suing over is they tried and succeeded in cutting off my access to a platform. Okay, that's wrong. And I think it's wrong to try to go after, at this point, Donald Trump's an incredibly powerful guy. I mean, he's the most powerful guy in the world. For him to start suing the Des Moines Register, which is, probably like barely functioning and surviving at this point, and this woman who like ended her career in the most humiliating way, what's the point? He
Well, look,
won.
I don't think this suit. He's done suits in the past that haven't sort of gone to fruition or haven't gone all the way through. But let me ask you a little bit of the other side of this. First of all, as you know, I mean, what they did to him in the E. Jean Carroll case.
Yeah.
So he says, "I'm not a rapist," basically. This woman is making it up, and then he gets sued for that.
She sues him. That's right. I agree. It's wrong. Weaponizing defamation lawsuit is wrong. And I think that's true of both sides. Okay. And the Democrats, like they're going to complain about this. They brought this on themselves. The Rudy Giuliani one, now that's a slightly harder case. Okay. Because Giuliani, or somewhat harder, I would say, because, he picked on these two random women and they had real problems. But the idea that he's losing everything, $150 million verdict is crazy. Okay.
Yeah,
that's
but
a crazy
when you're giving $150 million defamation verdicts, like why not make it $1 trillion? Like at that point, it's just the number is just absurd. It's you're not dealing in reality. So why would a court allow that?
Well, because again, it's you can sue in a favorable jurisdiction, and suddenly the sort of the guardrails are off on
because I can just tell you, Alex, some of the people listening are going to say they appreciate your adherence to principle on this one. But if some people don't feel the heat for what they've done up to this point, doesn't it then just become a one-way battle, right? I mean, that's where I don't pretend to have all the answers to this, but I do feel like just, taking shots in the face and hoping that it stops.
Let me give you a nonpartisan. I think this is a nonpartisan example, although it may be viewed, sort of as a pro-democratic example, because everything is partisan these days. Okay, when Trump was, on trial, the criminal trial I'm talking about, there were, Marchand, the judge, issued these things essentially preventing him from comment.
Yeah, the gag orders. Yeah.
Gag orders, that's right. And I thought that was problematic, okay? It was. It's essentially suppressing his First Amendment rights. Now, he can't threaten Alvin Bragg. He can't threaten the jury, but he should be allowed to make comments. And sometimes he may make intemperate comments. That's life, okay? I didn't think that was right. Let me give you, right now, Sean Combs, P. Diddy, right? He's in jail without bail for these sex trafficking charges, okay? You can read about the merits of the charges. I think what's been filed right now is not very strong. That doesn't mean they don't have a lot of evidence that they haven't produced. But
I mean, I do think they find like illegal guns. I mean, they've got them on a bunch of stuff. They found illegal guns, which people dismiss that. People go to prison for that stuff. Like I own a lot of legal guns. If you have guns with no serial numbers on them that you filed off, like stuff like that gets people sent to prison.
Guns, the narcotics, him beating up his girlfriend in 2016 in a video. P. Diddy's a bad guy, okay? You want to send him to jail for that stuff? Okay. That's not what he's been, indicted for. But let's put that aside. He's trying to make a case that he's a good guy, right? He's trying to get his kids to talk on his behalf and put out Instagram videos and, maybe, say like this stuff was consensual. And the prosecution right now is basically, even though there's been no impaneled jury, there's not even really the beginnings of selection or anything like that. They're saying he shouldn't be allowed to do any of that stuff. That he's trying to contaminate the jury pool.
Can I throw something in the mix here that I think that this is just on a higher philosophical level of our judicial system? We have learned that judges are effectively partisan actors. Unfortunately, people can try to pretend all day long, but they should adhere to the law. We hope they adhere to the law. But then look at what happens with the Supreme Court. It's my team, their team, my team, their team. Like there's an understanding. Anybody who's paying attention and honest knows this. The notion of an unbiased jury pool now in an era of instantaneous social media, constant connectivity, et cetera, especially when there's really no such thing, right? It used to be like, if you think about the old paradigm, it was like find a few people who are average everyday citizens who don't already have an opinion on the following. That's with someone like P. Diddy. Everyone's going to know about this. Everyone's going to have read stuff.
Everyone's going to. That's right. That's right. And by the way, there's stuff getting leaked about what a bad guy he is by the prosecution and the investigators practically every day. So he's trying to fight back. they're trying to suppress his First Amendment rights. Now, he may be the worst guy in the world. He may have done this stuff, and they may have him dead to rights, and he may go to jail for the rest of his life. Right now, he's innocent. Okay, even though he can't get bail, he's innocent until proven guilty, and I don't think it's right. Okay, for the same reason, I didn't think Donald Trump should be gagged from speaking about his case. So what we're seeing broadly is efforts to attack the First Amendment by prosecutors, by people on the left, and sometimes by people on the right too. And I think it's a bad idea. Okay, and we have a tradition in the United States of unfettered debate. I think is really important to the country, and you can see in Europe when you start letting people, get arrested because they say things the government doesn't like, it actually happens. Okay. It happens in Germany. It's happening increasingly in England. I don't want to live in that country. I'd rather have too much speech than not enough. I'd rather have all the 8chan trolls in the world. Okay. And somehow the left has forgotten this. Now, I don't want the right to forget it too.
I've got a closing question for Alex here in a second. I'll put it out there, Alex, but we're gonna have a pause on your answer because I have to mention our sponsor here. But closing question would be the most important thing for public health that could be achieved in 2025 for Trump. Most important thing that could make people healthy that could be done going forward. But hold up for that. Look, I know for a lot of people, your team is coming in right now. Trump. A lot of good things for the economy, a lot of reason for optimism, but we still have a big problem with the debt, and that's not going to anytime soon. And no matter what happens, this is something that poses a systemic risk to the long-term financial security of the dollar of the United States. So many people have taken action about this and try to diversify a bit, diversifying into gold specifically. Birch Gold Group will help you convert an IRA or 401k, for example, into an IRA in physical gold. And the best news, it doesn't cost you a penny out of pocket. Text Buck to 989898. Get your free info kit. Plus, right now through Black Friday, you'll receive a free 1-ounce Silver Eagle for every $5,000 purchased. Protect your savings with Birch Gold. Text BUCK to 989898 and claim your eligibility for free silver today. All right, Alex, most important thing that could be done by Trump and whoever his HHS secretary will be. People think RFK Jr. There's going to be a lot of opposition to that, I think, but we'll see. What could be done?
So, by the way, I think RFK Jr. gets in. If they can limit, the most important sort of specific thing they can do, if they can limit pharmaceutical advertising to consumers, that'd be a big deal. Now they can't. I'm convinced they cannot ban it because we have pretty strong. Again, this is back to the
you were
First
just
Amendment.
very passionate about the First Amendment. We can't.
That's right. But that's no. But I don't think that they should ban it. But I do think that there should be better disclosure of risk. That these products can't be bought directly by consumers. So there should be reasonable limits on how they are marketed to consumers. And I don't really think we have those right now. Call me a hypocrite if you want. I don't think that that's a hypocritical position. I'm not calling for the total ban, just better disclosure, I guess I would say.
Do we, on the vaccine schedule, because, I want to really poke the bear here. I think it was Dr. Marty McCary actually told me in an interview, it's something like 70. There's something like 70 vaccines in the how is this possible that we have so many vaccines now?
We've had vaccine creep. Honestly, we've had from stuff that that I don't think anybody would think, or maybe a few people, but polio or measles, and all of a sudden there's an HPV vaccine, which that's a sexually transmitted disease. Like I think it's a legitimate question and something that parents should get to decide if you want your 12-year-old to get the HPV vaccine. It really shouldn't be pushed. But you've had this creep because public health experts basically love vaccines. But let me pull back. Okay, I gave you one specific example, and you sort of gave me one specific example. I think the number one thing that could happen that would make public health better in the United States, that would help us all be healthier, is if we were all more genuinely skeptical of medicine. And I don't mean that means you never go to the doctor, okay? Or that you never take a vaccine, or that you never, let your kid get immunized. What I mean is the number one thing you can do for your own health is to eat decently, exercise reasonably, get some good sleep, and get outside. Okay. It's that simple. And we in the United States, in particular, it's true in every advanced country, but it's really true in this country. We get ourselves sick, we let ourselves get sick, and then we expect things of medicine that it cannot provide. Okay. And I think I have this sort of philosophical idea that that is another reason we are so angry at healthcare in this country. We spend so much on it and we expect it to do more than it can. Ultimately, you've got to be responsible for your own health. And ultimately, you've got to know, like, over time, your health is going to deteriorate as you age. You've got to fight it. You got to try your best, and you can't depend on doctors to fix things for you all the time.
I think that that's completely spot on, and that was a brilliant summation of a very important problem. I honestly, truly, like, not no. All kidding aside, I think that's absolutely essential. I think that that actually goes to the United Healthcare CEO assassination sort of sympathizers. I don't think that's a proper word. The people that are sympathizing with this, they keep thinking if only, the big bad healthcare companies did things differently. No, we would actually still have all the morbidity that we have and all this stuff out there. It's actually very rare for someone to be denied life-saving, truly life-saving care by a healthcare company. These things actually are overwhelmingly not happening. And whenever someone yells at me for saying this, I point out that in every poll, 65% of Americans, give or take, say that they like their health care, which means they like their health care company. And in some polls, it's like 75%, by the way. So this idea that, if only the big healthcare companies were regulated differently or did things differently, everything would be fine. I just think I think it's a fantasy. It's a little bit of a utopian mindset. And I think that that's what you're going to, which is people need to be very active. The people that I know who have the most disposable resources and the most interest in their health are incredibly active in all aspects of it, meaning they seek out certain kinds of doctors, seek out certain kinds of specialists, and seek out a lot of preventative care, active management of health, blood work every 6 months, all these kinds of things. And those are the people that can
take good care of themselves, right?
Right. And those are the people that can spend whatever money they want on their health. They don't show up at a doctor once every year or two, and have not done these things that you're talking about, which are critical for health. I mean, remember when this radical idea with COVID was you need vitamin D, like you actually need to get sunlight. And it really came through that was important for you and your immunity levels for COVID and vitamin D. And people at first were like, well, that can't be. And it's like, no. We've always known this. These are things that matter. So I completely agree with you.
Well, hopefully 2025 will be a good year, and we will, we'll get matching T-shirts for our next.
I know. It was Green Shirt Day on the Buck Show. Tell me, where should everyone go? Just Substack, right? Substack to follow
Substack
your work. Subscribe.
The Substack is called Unreported Truths, and you can find it at Alex Berenson, my name, .substack.com. So please, the good thing about it is almost everything on there, practically everything on there is free. I've been very, very fortunate the last few years. People subscribe and pay me for content that they can get for free. And, I don't mean to like well up here or whatever, but I'm truly grateful for that. And it's a real community.
Well, there's a crossover between those who are Berenson fans of your work and appreciate your work when it was especially powerful in the COVID issue and continue to follow you this day, and people that listen to this show or listen to our radio show, because for those of us who remember, and many of us do, it was lonely, man. I remember texting Alex these people are insane. What's going on? He's like, I know, but everyone's insane, pretty much. So
yeah, it was. And we will see what happens with Berenson v. Biden. So, keep your fingers crossed or say a little prayer if that's your thing. And, hope for good news.
If the government has to write you a 9-figure check, remember who your friends were.
There will be a party. There will be a party.
There we go. All right. Happy holidays, Alex. Thanks so much.
You too. Thank you, sir.